Good morning. We're ready to go ahead here with the continuance of our committee conference on HB 1661. We did have, I'd like to address the SB 400 portion of the bill. And we did receive a amendment from Senator Bradley here. And if Senator Bradley could please explain that so everybody has a copy in front of us here. I think there's copies available for the public as well.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
This is ours. Okay, thank you.
So, based on the conversation that we had the other day, I took it upon myself to draft the following amendment 2025. It dealt with the housing piece, the Senate Bill 400 piece. So Section 83, I deleted the last sentence and put a period after the word development. I think that Representative Turcotte may want to discuss that further. And then on 92 and 93 added Section 5, and on the next page, J in 93. And that's to allow separately adopted ordinance. And the thought was to try to give greater participation by the voters, or voter approval for the TIFIA financing.
So that does provide greater voting approval by the legislative body, and it allows for the posting of that hearing and all in accordance with statute.
And I worked with a municipal association on this language, and I think Natch is here. Yeah, there he is. So they thought it worked for cities and towns.
Okay, so let's have Representative Turcotte, your name was referenced here by the senator. Can you respond to that particular section?
Yeah, although I think the attempt was made to actually get language in that brought up on the point I brought up the other day I'm talking 92 and 93 right now. I'll go back to 83 in a minute. I do not believe that the language in the amendment captures what we were trying to accomplish, and I'll explain. My concern was that any municipality that has adopted the Municipal Economic Development and Revitalization District, and does anybody know, are there those already existing in the state? Has there been? There are. So okay. So my issue was that by adding the language in 5, it was effectively bypassing the town's ability to have a say in whether they wanted that particular issue in the the revitalization district, and that's because before a municipal economic development district can be brought into a town or municipality or city, it has to be voted on by the legislative body or the citizens at a meeting. So the intent of what I was trying to do was say, okay, we're okay with that language but we want the voters and or the representatives of that town to specifically utilize RSA 162K1, which is called the local option, which is an affirmative vote to bring that piece into their existing municipal revitalization district. And again, I do not believe the language that's provided does that. I just passed out what I had originally given to Senator Bradley a couple days ago, maybe a day ago. And I believe that captures the essence of exactly what we're trying to accomplish. It may not be perfectly worded, and it's not in an amendment form, but the what's trying to be accomplished, I think, is much better captured in that language. Back to paragraph 83, I think the only other thing, the only other thing we'd like to see in that, and again, it's because of, we don't want things forced on municipalities, and that would be in the amendment I just handed out here, where it says if a municipality allows an increased density, I just changed the word there to permits an increased density, but the important part is right after it mentions RSA 354A15(8), I've struck in the words shall allow and inserted may permit. And that again is to give the municipality the decision rather than the state handing down a mandate. So those are the only two things. Like I say, I like the wording of ours better. I think it actually captures. I've read through the amendment that Senator Bradley passed out several times, and I just don't believe it captures what the issue I was trying to raise. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion on this now? So we have two potential perspectives here, both referencing 162K:1.
Would it be appropriate to hear from Natch of the Municipal Association
Sure.
as to what's workable for them? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Does he have a copy of the amending language of both of them? Does he have the Bradley amendment as well?
I've seen both amendments,
We-
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't have Senator
We have
Bradley's
extras
in
right
front of
here.
me. Thank you for the record, Nate Grays for the New Hampshire Municipal Association. So I guess I will address sections 92 and 93 first. I believe that the amendment that Senator Bradley handed out effectively does the same thing as Representative Turcotte's. The language is slightly different, but it does say that if separately adopted by the city or town by the procedures described in RSA 162K:1, so that separates out this new section 5 from and section J from the existing definition of public use under 92, and then the district establishment under 93. And so you'd have to have a separate town meeting vote if you have a town meeting or in a city council or a city city council vote in order to adopt those provisions. So effectively, it does the same thing. I just think the language might be a little bit clearer in Senator Bradley's amendment. As far as Section 83 goes, I don't see any legal difference between the term allows and permits. Effectively, they're the same thing, although it is the case that if you were to change shall allow to may permit, that would shift workforce housing from being something that is necessarily linked to housing for older persons in terms of any sort of incentives to something that is just permissive and would not put a requirement on municipalities. I hope that's helpful, but I went through that rather quickly, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So is the committee good with either one of these? I'd like to try to start getting some of this accomplished. Yeah, Senator.
I mean, I would,
I-
based on what
whichever.
Natch
Lou.
has just said, I think that, at least in terms of section 92 and 93,
Good.
my language, which I think he said is a bit clearer, it has the same intent as Representative Turcotte's. So I would hope that we're okay with that. In terms of 83, the whole point of 83 is if a community is going to have elderly housing, then with incentives, then it would have workforce housing with incentives. I mean, one potential option would be to pass 83 the way it is in this amendment, but with a sunset clause of, say, 5 years, see how it works, you know, and the legislature would have to reauthorize it. So that would be, you know, one thing that I could live with. I haven't had a chance to share it with my Senate colleagues, but hopefully they could live with it too. And I think that would be, you know, another guardrail, so to speak.
Senator Del Zandro, you had your speaker on as well.
Just a quick, if indeed Senator Bradley's concept is.
Can you lower that, please? So we
Right.
can-
If Senator Bradley's concept is accepted, then we would take the language that he's presented in his amendment 2025S, and the shall allow should be in it rather than the may permit. Correct? I think, yeah, that and both 92 and 93 are acceptable to Representative Turcotte because basically, according to the testimony we've just heard, they're exactly the same. So what we're talking about is two words: shall allow versus may permit,
with the possibility of a sunset provision.
with the possibility of a sunset provision.
Representative Turcotte.
Yeah, thank you. And again, on 92 and 93, if the intent is actually the exact same thing as I'm suggesting in my language, and again, my language is slightly different, but to me, it's more clear, as I'm always concerned about the intent going forward, and I'm not quite sure the Bradley amendment gets that intent across as well. I'm willing to look at it some more. As to 83, whether the word allow stays in or changes to permit, that's not my issue. My issue is the shall. I believe just as easily we could put may in there and we could have a sunset position on a may. I dislike telling towns you must do this, and that's what shall, the word shall means. You know, there's a wide range of words we can use: shall, could, would, may, and shall's the most definitive of them all. And for me, I would need to see a may in there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, Representative Cordelli.
Thank you. Yeah, I think might be down to one word, but it's a mighty important word there. And I think I agree with what Representative Turcotte said. And also, we've received a lot of comments, both from the public and from our caucus, about section related to 400. And I think the may versus shall would also be a major point in taking this back to our caucus.
Thank you. So it looks as if there's just primarily we're in concurrence on 92 and 93, the intent, and hearing the department say that, that they're reading it the same way. So the issue is primarily now with 83 and that word may, and possibly scooting around that with a sunset provision clause. So we need to, put this aside now, and we know that there's a possible way of steering the ship through this part of our task. are there, before we drop 400, Representative Turcott, do you have anything else on 400?
No, nothing other than that, other than did they end up passing out the full amendment with all the deletions? I think Senator Bradley, we did that the other day. Am I correct? We passed out, and then we were only down to these three issues, really, these three paragraphs.
We had agreed to take out sections 86, 89, 90, and 94. You had agreed to keep in all of the other sections other than 83, 92, and 93.
Yeah.
Did I confuse everybody?
I do believe we are okay with the exceptions of these three paragraphs. Of course, we have time, we'll confirm that, but I don't believe there are any other issues on 400.
Okay, and I had that communication also, so I think we've got that noted too now. So we're closing in on 400. Is there a need for any more discussion on 400 at this time? For the conferees, 420 is totally out of the picture now. That was resolved yesterday, and so we will not be discussing 420. That is out of this bill. It's been handled through the conference there.
And I would just say, I haven't had a chance to consult with Senator D'Alessandro, but I think Senator Hennessy's fine.
Yes.
I'm fine.
Yep.
Are you fine with that, Senator D? Okay, thank you.
So we've communicated on that. That extraordinary needs grant is going forward with accountability within it, and the 300 to 500 is out. Alrighty, so next, I guess we need to address 430 and where we are on this, all the way from Roman numeral 3 to Roman numeral 25 on the bill itself. I had a discussion with some folks in the Health and Human Services earlier this morning, and there are some portions of 430 which are technical corrections that were in the original House version of 430, which will enable the department be in conjunction with what is happening in reality. So I think somewhere along the way we need to have this discussion, and I've asked that those areas be marked as far as which ones are not in the floor amendment, which were in our House bill as came out of the House committee. Okay, so backing up a little bit, where I was when I was reviewing it again, this legislation last night at midnight, I saw sections dealing with the Glencliff home, and being able to provide incentives for folks to come. Finding these nurses now is very difficult. They're in competition with my area with Hitchcock big time, and even with Grafton County Home and with the Cottage Hospital. And so they're looking at anything being able to award up to $10,000 to attract these nurses to the facility. There's also some cleanup in regard to some of the funds which were paid earlier this year. And this is just one small area. I had another question about the kinship care homes, which is in this thing, and where there can be an exemption and extending from 30 days to 180 days, placing children into these facilities which are not licensed. And I was just asking, is there oversight of these facilities during the extended 1.5 year period of time? If these things are not critical to, and we're in the original version, I can't see any reason why we wouldn't be moving those parts forward. Any discussion?
Yeah, as discussed the other day, multiple times, this bill will not be part of a complete package of 1661. It's a bill that can be brought up in 6 months. They can put it forward then. It is a bill that the Senate had the opportunity to call a separate committee of conference on. They declined that. They non-concurred and then took our 430 less the floor amendment and put it on here. This bill will not be part of the 1662. Thank you. I'm sorry, I
1661.
just came from 1662, 1661.
Yeah, we're in one today. Okay, is there a response? It looks to me like where we're coming from now is that 430 should not be part of this bill.
So, I think we may need to reconvene on this issue. I, somewhere in my pile of papers here, have the docket. I can look it up easily and quickly, but I suspect that Representative Umberger can illuminate on this. I believe that the House passed version of 430 passed out of the Finance Committee, the House Finance Committee, 20-0. Went to the floor. There was the amendment added that I believe was House Bill 1044, which dealt with hospitals. The Senate rejected that, added the balance of 430 back to this bill 1661. But the point I'm trying to make is I think the House passed virtually all the sections of House Bill 430. I think it came out of your committee, Representative Umberger, 20-0. So I'm kind of mystified as to why it's a problem today. That it would be a problem for me, and I suspect for my Senate colleagues, a big problem.
And I'll be happy to address that one. As I've explained now multiple times, the issue is not so much the content of the bill, or it was how we did not have a committee or conference on the bill by itself, and that the Senate chose to non-concur. The number of items in the bill alone is a problem for many on our caucus. We've had the discussion that the more that is added to 1661, Representative Cordelli mentioned it on 400 alone. When you have 400 and 430 on it, 430 as of now is not going on anyway, but the more you add on to that, we are going to have issues with our caucus. Now, I attempted to explain that the Senate has a little bit different dynamic with 24 of you than we have with over 200, trying to corral 200 into a vote, if you will. So the votes that you're seeing coming out of finance is one thing. What you saw on the floor is totally unrelated to what actually went on to get us to that point of including 430 along with the floor amendment. So again, as of the moment, 430 is not going to be part of this bill. If you were to say we want 430 more than we want to attempt to go with 400, that might be an option, but 400, as you've seen by the House floor votes, 400 is not admired by the majority of our caucus and some on the other side of the aisle. So you want to start adding all these things in there, it's the entire thing is going to go down.
Well, that would be unfortunate because I think we need to build a parking garage, but if we're at loggerheads, I'd suggest we reconvene tomorrow.
I like to just say my 2 cents that as the prime sponsor of 1661, this bill was designed originally and a result of approximately 5 to 6 years of hard work with the directors of the CTE centers throughout the state, with the advisory councils, with business, trying to align what we're producing out of our schools, K through 12, a commodity which business and industry, manufacturing recognize has the skills to be successful. In other words, the student. And we need to double the number of students we coming out of our high school situations with this skill understanding to properly prepare and maintain industry and manufacturing in the state. And we're not doing it. And this bill provides the opportunity for students to attain the graduation Carnegie units, the graduation requirements, the 20 required, for a student attending a CTE course now to get those credits, not necessarily through the sending school, but in the receiving center. So they don't have to avoid going to a program because they have to remain home at that sending school to receive that one algebra course or that chemistry course. Now it's embedded into the courses and the programs of studies at the CTE. That program is critical, and coupled with the emergency situation, I wouldn't call it an emergency, but it makes our garage much safer. We all know the condition that is in. And that is going to be a problem within the next, well, is a problem right now. So that is key to, I think, all of our positions right here. And we got to try to work together here on this other stuff that's been added to it. Likened to that Christmas tree with too many bulbs on it, I think, as Representative or Senator Guida mentioned on the Senate floor. So I would encourage us all to try to work together to try to get to that end and get that resolved. Thank you. So is there any further discussion on this right now? We will be recessing for our next one, which is we're going to have to come to the table with some answers. So I suggest that we work carefully together on that, as we have been doing, Senator Bradley.
What time would you like to come back tomorrow?
What time do these reports have to be in to the
3.
3 o'clock to
I'd
the?
suggest 9 a.m.
I would suggest 9 o'clock too. And I would think we bring our lunch too. Okay. So we will recess this meeting till 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, Thursday, and we'll conclude things then. Thank you very much. We're done.
Could have borrowed my gavel.
Pardon me?
I said you could have borrowed my gavel.
I felt like bringing both of mine down and putting